So tonight we're presenting a proposed high school English course sequence plan for board consideration. Over the last 2 months since I've started in Culver City, I've had the pleasure and opportunity to meet with various stakeholders, begin learning the programming, and collect data in order to bring this presentation to you. So this framework emerges from ongoing conversations around equity, academic rigor, and student-centered learning. The board is invited to consider and determine next steps with flexibility to amend or request further development by adding a rigorous course back to the 10th grade, such as English honors. Next slide. In 2022, we shifted to a college prep for all model in grades 9 and 10 with the intent to dismantle inequitable tracking and provide every student access to rigorous instruction. This replaced the prior honor structure within the English program with a unified college prep English pathway, with the goal to ensure equitable preparation for advanced coursework in grades 11 and 12. Next slide. So our current English offerings are noted here, and to note, AP Lang fulfills the advanced rigor role as the advanced English pathway in the 11th grade and AP Lit in the 12th grade. Next slide. Now let's take a look at some of the data that we've gathered in preparation for the presentation. Our student surveys indicate that while over 67% of students feel their English classes are just right, a notable majority, over 60% express interest in honors or pre-AP English if such options were available, suggesting an interest in self-identified readiness for differentiated learning opportunities. Next slide. Our family and caregiver input echoes this same interest. More than 80% support offering a rigorous course such as honors, especially in grade 10. There's a strong community advocacy for choice and academic challenge. Slide 6. So this proposal aims to preserve the foundational goals of the 9th grade college prep for all while responding to the April 2024 request for 10th grade course options noted by the board and by data and feedback through differentiated grade 10 model. Adding Honors English 10 or AP seminar options along with College Prep 10 creates inclusive pathways that recognize diverse levels of readiness. Next slide. Data supports a shift in our English offerings. Survey responses, classroom performance, and standards alignment indicate that a significant number of students in grades 9 and 10 are progressing well and demonstrate readiness for increased academic rigor. Importantly, both AP Seminar and Honors English 10 courses have been previously board approved, and both represent rigorous options that could meet different student needs. Depending on which is approved for this pathway, while AP Seminar already aligns with college-level expectations, it would just need to be brought over from an elective to an English pathway course. A revised English 10 honors course would be designed to meet A through G standards and provide a district alternative to College Prep 10. Given strong student interest in advanced coursework, we're presenting options for board consideration, with the understanding that either pathway could serve as a rigorous and inclusive offering in grade 10. While some might see this as tracking, it really demonstrates a broad course of study and a need to look at differentiation at all levels so that we're preparing our students for college and career and additionally offering options that they're interested in participating in. Next slide. So based on the April 22nd, 2024 board meeting, the following direction, 2025, board meeting, the following direction was summarized by a board member for one of the noted options: maintaining the way the system was, which was pre-2020, or where we are now, the current system. And a third one, the recommendation noted on the slide, would be adding a seminar option for a decision. Slide 9. This proposed sequence maintains English College Prep as a universal 9th grade course, providing all students with a strong foundation for future academic choices. It has been intentional and would remain as such to keep English 9 and 10 college prep classes and their enrollment smaller than the average high school class size to facilitate differentiated instruction. On a data note, while 5.8 of the 10 student of 5.8 out of 10 students surveyed indicated a preference for honors beginning in 9th grade. 4.2 of 10 did not. This reflects a moderate yet not overwhelming level of support, and we've taken note of this input. It's also important to consider that in the 9th grade, while included on high school transcripts, they're not factored into the official UC CSU grade point average calculation. The University of California system limits extra honors points to a maximum of 8 semesters, 4-year-long courses taken in grades 10 through 12, with no more than 4 semesters or 2 courses from the 10th grade. Based on the student interest and academic readiness, the board is invited to consider one or both of 2 previously approved rigorous courses for grade 10 English, either a redeveloped English Honors 10 course aligned to A through G standards or an AP seminar course currently offered as the elective. Both provide academic challenging pathways and would serve as differentiated alternatives to college prep English 10. Additionally, to qualify as an honors course, it's important to note that there must be a non-honors counterpart offered concurrently, hence the English 10 prep course remaining. This decision provides an opportunity for the board to align instructional design with student needs, district values, and long-term academic goals. Next slide. So to conclude, this proposed course sequence reflects a data-informed and inclusive response to involving student needs and interest and district values. Both AP seminar and a redeveloped English Honors 10 course, again, previously board approved, represent viable, rigorous options for us. The board is invited to consider selecting one of these for implementation in the 10th grade, beginning in the 26-27 school year. We welcome your input on which pathway best aligns with our shared goals and student opportunity.
Thank you. Colleagues, Member Carlson.
Okay. Thank you so much for this presentation, all your hard work on this, especially being really new to the district and having to walk into watching hours of meetings and public comments and, and I know some of this was very challenging, frankly, to try to make heads and tails of what it is that we were talking about and what we were interested in doing. This is the 3rd time this year that this issue's come before us, 3rd time since I've been on the board. And, as I mentioned the last time that this came up, this is a subject other than the budget generally that I've been kind of forced to spend the most amount of time on. I have a 2nd grader at home, so I've learned a heck of a lot about the high school experience, I guess you could say, from some of my friends in the community, folks that I've talked to, other board members, et cetera. This issue has been 2 classes or 2, grade levels of English at the high school, and it has consumed so much of our time because there's such strong opinions in the community about this. The first time this came up during my term was after I requested to agendize it, and we discussed it for the first time at our April 22nd meeting. At that time, I think you mentioned there's some there were options given, but there were no really recommendations, and I think that's something that we were looking to our administration at the time to provide. We did hear a presentation from Dr. Baxter, your predecessor, mostly focused on the data that had been gathered, and I want to take a moment just to talk a little bit about data in general. We make a lot of reference to that term sort of in this space, as a board, as administration and whatnot. But I think there's often a misunderstanding of the usefulness of data. Raw, uninterpreted information is data, right? That's what it is. We should really be framing the conversation not just in terms of data, but rather evidence. So data that's analyzed, interpreted, used to support a claim, hypothesis, or argument. So those of us who work in the legal profession, there's a couple of us up here. Mr. Lackman is not a litigator like I have been in the past, so I don't think he works quite as much in the very specific rules of evidence, although we're certainly taught that in law school. Those of us who have tried cases understand the importance of showing our work and getting us from point A to point B, taking information and drawing conclusions from that information. So with that in mind, I just want to use the information that we do have and test some of the hypotheses that have been put forward. So the first hypothesis that was presented when the district initially transitioned away from the choice of standard and accelerated English courses at 9 and 10 to 1 course of English at each level was that it would result in an increased enrollment in our 11th and 12th grade English offerings in the AP area, so AP language, AP literature, particularly among our Latino and Black students. What we found back in April when I walked Dr. Baxter through that data was that the hypothesis was just completely incorrect. The enrollment in APs actually substantially decreased overall and decreased among Black and Latino students too. Another hypothesis was that students would learn more and do better in one level of English than if there were two. And so the data point that would support that conclusion that worked was that the D and F list numbers decreased overall in 9th and 10th grade English classes. At the time, we identified a potentially confounding factor, which was potentially that the introduction of equity grading practices meant that some students had a better chance of passing a class when they would not necessarily have in the past. In general, I think that's a good thing. I think we should not be failing our high school students to the extent we possibly can and giving them opportunities to learn and grow their young people, right? But now we have the benefit of this recently released California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, that CASPP data that we were talking about, that underlies the dashboard presentation that we just received. This is another data point relating to student performance. And I do want to just recognize also that no standardized test is entirely objective. There's a lot of, inputs into that, and it can't, there's various social aspects that come into play there. However, this is a test that is uniformly applied across the state to measure student performance against a specific standard. And the results in a nutshell, as we discussed, were that at a very high level, our data is trending in a good direction, both English and math at the elementary and middle school levels and in high school math. So good for us on that. There is, however, one area where we have actually experienced a decline in our scores, and you might guess that it is, in fact, high school English, language, arts, and literacy. So I have prepared a PowerPoint that I hope somebody on staff can help put up there. My staff of one, myself, did this. So I apologize for the lack of artistic skill involved in this. It's not something that I do on a regular basis. But there we go. Okay. So right here, you can see what's happening with English, language, arts in the middle school. So the middle school assessment is given in 8th grade. You can see that the numbers are pretty much static year over year with a slight trend upward. Of course, that doesn't mean that we're done improving, but a slight uptick is better than downward motion. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So then we have the high school data. I'm going to try to look at this on my own computer as well here. So that high school English assessment is given in the 11th grade, right? So that one level of English was introduced in 22-23 school year. Those students were 11th graders in 2024 to 2025. The 11th graders in 23 to 2024 had the opportunity to select a standard English course or honors as 9th graders, but not as 10th graders. And the 11th graders in 22 to 23 had both options in both 9th and 10th grade. So if we can take a look at this data and interpret it, and I proffer sort of a one option for interpreting it, you can see a decline in English language arts proficiency from 22 to 23 and then to 2024-25 from about 77.01% that met or exceeded the standard in 22-23 to 75.87% in 23-24 and 68.07% in 24-25. At the same time, interestingly, those math scores are actually getting slightly better. They're not great, but they're moving upward at least. So then you can also sort of look at this ELA data even a little more granularly. So you can see that the percentage of exceeded standards actually remains roughly the same over those 3 years, 41.68% to 41.44% to 42.23%. Meanwhile, the standard nearly met is actually increasing from 14.58% to 15.46% and then to 20.17%. And so is the standard not met, 8.41% to 8.66% to 11.76%. So most of the movement that we're seeing is actually from students just meeting the standards into a category of students not meeting the standards. So it'd be reasonable to conclude that actually the students who are likely to take honors English are still performing fine, more or less. It's the kids who had previously been opting for the standard English class that have actually been declining under this one-size-fits-all system. And given that increase in not meeting standards, I'm also just kind of skeptical for another reason now about the hypothesis that the decrease in D and F list is related to actual performance. To me, it seems like it does reflect the recalculation of grading to enable more kids to pass. Again, I'm not passing judgment on whether that's a good thing or bad thing. I think that we should be trying to pass our students and giving them those opportunities if at all possible. We should not be trying to fail 9th graders or 10th graders. But it is an example of how the presentation of data is sometimes like a light refracting through a prism, and the conclusions that one can reach are not always the right ones. So there is also a theory that having one level of English would be particularly good for Black and Latino students. And so I'd like to go to the next slide here. Okay, and so we can take a look at these demographics for a moment. So when you see for Black students, the number that met and exceeded in 22-23, the percentage was 73.92. In 23-24, it was 67.95 and 52.46 in 24-25. So you can also see among this data, the biggest erosion has been in the standards exceeded from 26.09% to 26.92 to just 11.48%, which would actually tend to indicate to me that the absence of the honors English classes actually hurt our Black high performing students the most. At the same time, the standards not met went from 13.04 to 16.67 to 18.03. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, and so for Latino students, it's a somewhat different story. It's kind of interesting because we went from 64.05% in 22-23 up to 70.53% in 23-24, and then down to 60.83% in 24-25. So it's a little bit unclear whether there's a discernible trend there, but I would just note that even after a couple of years of the sort of one class for everybody in 9th and 10th grade, the performance is still lower than when there were two levels of English. I also did put white and Asian students on this PowerPoint, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over that. They've not been a primary area of focus. And sorry, I'm not including the smaller groups of students. I just wanted to take a look at some overall trends and test some hypotheses, that were more likely to be accurate when we're looking at larger groups of people. So I think you can actually take my PowerPoint down now. Thank you. So I had previously commented about why everybody's digging in their heels on English 9 and 10. We have 25 AP courses in this district, I believe, if not more than that. We have honors courses in the other disciplines at the high school. We have varsity sports teams that you have to try out for, and you don't get on them unless you are one of the best players. You have theater and musical programs that you also have to win competitive auditions to participate. We also have this thing called the Double Accelerated Math Program, which I admit I still do not fully understand, and I have a few years to try to get with the program on that, but that's actually not open enrollment as our English honors programs have been. My understanding also is that it requires a higher level of parental engagement as kids need to be transported to different campuses to take higher grade level math courses. And we're actually seeing greater inequities among our student groups in math. So I think, I'd like to return to that conversation at some other point in time, not really one for tonight, but we do need to be seriously looking into our math curriculum, and I'm not blaming the teachers here. I know this is something that goes far beyond all of us, and some of this like California standards and whatnot too, but it would be great to have some more intervention there. So then the English course of study came back before us for a second time, and in May my understanding was that it was to present options for only the 25-26 school year. We were told by Drs. Lucas and Baxter at the time that our only option for 25-26 was to add the AP seminar as an elective. So I was okay with that for the time being, but I think we all agreed at that time that the discussion would continue this fall, and certainly something I was telling the community as well, to take a serious look at our options in both levels for 26 and 27. And I do just, I have quite a few more comments here, but I do want to take just a moment to ask a couple of questions here. I guess, it's becoming a little bit more clear from the revised presentation, but Drs. Menez and Heinrich, would you say that you were kind of under the impression from the board that we only wanted to revisit 10th grade English at this time?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's why we're not talking about 9th grade right now? Okay. All right. Now, that was not what I intended, but, if the rest of the board agrees with me, we should talk about both grades. I think we could still do that. We also still have another meeting yet, too. If you need more time to prepare for that, certainly open to that as well. Since our April meeting, I also was provided with information from a community member who did the research that I was expecting our district administration at the time to do, but they did not. This community member actually looked at all the other districts around Los Angeles County to see what they do. I provided that information to you all beforehand, and I think, I know you verified, certainly with respect to the West Side and South Bay, the information was right? Okay. I'm seeing nodding yes. So, and so there's, what the information actually shows us is there's only one other district in LA County that has one level of English for 9th and 10th grade, and that's Santa Monica. We've had a lot of conversations about Santa Monica as a board, certainly when we've been appealing to the city to try to get them to help fund us, because there are a lot of ways in which Santa Monica Malibu differs from CCUSD. The most significant being that they are a basic aid district. So that means they have enough of a property tax base that they don't need to participate in this complicated funding formula from the state that doles out money based on average daily attendance, the number of kids enrolled in the district, and how many days of school that they attend. They just don't need to care about their declining enrollment problem and student attrition, because if the Santa Monica Malibu students go to private school, there's actually more money available for the kids who stay in the district. So it's not, they don't have the concern that we do about families that are sort of approaching their choices in middle school and high school and deciding whether that's the district for them and opting out and going to other districts or going to private school. So I think that's something that we really need to know. And then also there's a pretty extreme difference between Santa Monica Malibu's budget and ours. And, you know, if there's any city council members out there listening to me, Santa Monica Malibu has a $282 million budget that they just passed. Ours is $107 million for this upcoming year. They were projecting having 8,333 students. We have 6,503. So their student population is only about 28% higher than ours. Their budget is 160% higher than ours. That's in significant part due to the city of Santa Monica's robust partnership with the district and funding of, I believe it's close to $40 million a year from all sources. So they have the joint use agreement that's like $10 million a year. They share in some parcel, not a parcel tax, but the real property transfer tax, and then as well as a sales tax too. So, you know, they have the funding to be able to provide additional supports. They have the funding to decrease class sizes that we just frankly don't have. There's also a handful of districts around LA County that have one level of English 9, but have 2 levels of English 10. So that's sort of what we're proposing right now. But these are the only other districts that have that in the county. You have La Cañada, Manhattan Beach, South Pasadena, and Temple City. All the rest of the districts in Los Angeles County, all over the place, have 2 levels of English in grades 9 and 10. So I see my role here as a representative of the community that put me here. It's a great community. It's full of people who choose to live here instead of somewhere else because they value public education. They want to send their kids to good public schools. Our schools are very diverse. It's a point of pride in the community, and it's a point of pride for me as well. I've previously said that this matter of honors English was hands down the most salient issue in the 2024 election. It wasn't the uptick in violence that had happened previous years before that, not the mismanagement of funds, including hiring a grifty nonprofit and an opportunistic real estate development firm. Both of those were also pretty salient issues, but door after door that I knocked on, the number one issue was academic excellence in the district, and particularly the elimination of honors English in both 9th and 10th grades. It was seen by the community as a canary in a coal mine, the first step to taking away educational opportunities for our kids. I knocked on a lot of doors during the election, and I'm sitting up here right now, so I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good grasp on what the opinions of many of our community members are who are not in this room. I asked if we could hear from students directly. I also observed that while we often heard from the same people at meetings, there were only a few voices participating in that conversation for a variety of reasons. I'm heartened that our district administration surveyed students and families, but now we have to listen to them. If we want this community to support us when we ask them to do so, we need to be responsive to them. The good news is that they spoke loud and clear, both the students and the parents and the guardians. 71% of secondary students want the opportunity to take an honors course in English, and 79% and 85% of parents want honors to be available in 9th and 10th grade, respectively. Fully half of the kids in grades 9 to 12 who responded substantively to the question about whether the English class was too easy, just right, or too difficult said it was too easy. So we're doing a disservice to our kids if we don't listen to them and what they want. Anything else is just simply not student-centered. So as I sit here today, I just want to express my strong preference that we implement both a standard and accelerated option for both English in 9th and 10th grades. If it is the case that tonight we can only vote on 10th grade, I can accept that, but I think we should be bringing back 9th grade as well, maybe at the next meeting if possible, but certainly before we finalize anything for next year. And I also just want to reiterate, too, that I am fully supportive of bringing back these English classes, but we just want to make sure that we are doing so with an eye toward providing additional support for the kids that need it. So that could take the form, as you all mentioned, about having smaller class sizes for standard English in 9th grade and 10th grade courses than for honors, and providing support for the 8th and 9th grade teachers to help them identify high potential students, to encourage them to sign up for honors courses, and being really intentional in combating our implicit biases. But I do think we need to bring these courses back for our kids as well as for the long-term health of the district. So with that, I don't think I really have any questions. I've had them all answered over time. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'm interested to hear from my colleagues as well.
Yeah, thanks. Lachlan.
Similarly, and by the way, before I start,
Hold on, I can move to limit discussion. That's what That's what I was going to do.
Sure. You can make the motion, sure.
I would like to, and I'm looking for input because it is already 10:07 and they still need to work tomorrow. So if we could limit discussion to 7 to 10 minutes each, like, I don't think that that's crazy. Is that okay?
I have chapters 7 through 12 here. I was
Well,
ready to
thank
go
you.
through, but okay.
Thank you. I mean, I don't think that we're so, like, off, so thank you.
So first of all, I do want to say that I did do litigation for 2 to 3 years. But, you know, I did manage to recover. I also, even in business law, we believe very much in looking at the evidence and what works and what we've heard today in those discussions and what I also heard going door to door, where, you know, we had people to answer the door 4 out of those 10 times, it was this issue, more than any other issue. The rest of the time, it was, thank you for giving me your information. And I heard some other small ones, but this is the number one issue. And with what we heard today, the schools that tend to that have tended to take away honors tend to be the wealthier ones. And the schools that have more challenged populations are adding honors classes and are seeking out more opportunities. So it's an interesting trend, and I think, if you will, sort of a misunderstanding here. I do understand that, and this was my understanding from the last discussion, that one of the reasons we weren't looking at 9th grade is that at this point was that 9th grade is a transition year. Is that correct? Much like 6th grade, you're learning and it doesn't count for grades and things like that. And that's why we're at this point not looking at 9th grade. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm not completely closed-minded to revisiting this issue at another time. I think in all of this, there are just some things that we need to do that aren't up there. I appreciate the questions, although I think the questions about whether it should be hard or easy should have been asked to the 9th and 10th graders, maybe the 11th and 12th graders. I don't think asking 6th graders about what is right is necessarily as accurate. I have a feeling we'd see similar numbers, but it just helps in terms of making sure that our data is more focused. In the small number of school districts where this taking away has worked, it's been because of large investments in student support, and it's also been because of smaller class sizes. In Santa Monica, you have 25 students per class. In the 10th grade, we're still up at 30. We're not there. In 9th grade, we're at 19 to 20, but we're at 28 to 30 in the 10th grade. And these were questions I asked during the last time, and so that's why I'm bringing this up, that even if we wanted to make this work, we didn't give the teachers the tools to. And I'm still not convinced that it does. But what we've heard is that for the 10th grade, it needs to come back, and it needs to come back with an honors program, and I 100% will support that. In the 9th grade, I'm willing to discuss that in the future. But I want to make sure in this, in terms of the next steps, and I don't know whether I can amend this or just make this clear in terms of a preference here, we need to have a plan to show how we're going to support these students. We need a plan to show how we're going to make our 10th grade classes smaller. I would prefer the AP may be one method, so we'd have the 3. The other way I would prefer would be to have us explore, and I know it would take a lot of work, but if we can offer a dual enrollment class, because the AP classes, they cost $100 to take the test. It's biased toward those who have the economic means, and finding ways to lower college costs, I think, would enable us to lower those class sizes, and something which I think would get us along those paths. And so I think those are the 2 things that we need to do here. And if we don't have those in our plan, then we got to go back to making it work the previous way, because we're not in good faith giving our teachers the tools they need in order to succeed. And we're not serving them, and we're certainly not serving our students that way. So with that in mind, I think those are the points that I want to make in all this and the additional steps that I feel we need here. But no matter what we do, we need to bring back that 10th grade honors English. We can discuss 9th grade. If we want to do an AP, If it'll lower the class sizes, I think we can be open to it. I'm just not sure the benefit. I think you had mentioned that you had found out how many students actually took the AP seminar last year. How many were there? I know you and I discussed that when we were sitting down.
The AP seminar class was currently for this year.
For this year. Sorry, this year.
Yes, I know the class started out with, I believe it had 20 students, and currently the class is at 13.
Okay. And that's meaningfully lowered the class sizes in the other one. No, this is an addition, so they have to do both, right? So, but if we can offer that, then that might be a way for us to lower those class sizes and see if we can make this work. But I think you have to do these steps, otherwise we're not doing anybody any favors. And I think it's a disservice, frankly, to our students and our teachers to not have invested when we first did this. And even if we want to show this works, we have to do it now and do it right or not do it at all. Those are my points and my questions in this.
I just wanted to point out, just because I knew the history from the seminar class, that when it was approved for last year, or for this year, it was approved as an elective class.
Right.
So it's really hard for 10th graders to fit an extra class into their schedule. So the number is 13, which would be an anticipated number because the kids had to give something else up. And 10th grade is such a busy year that that's probably why you had a lower number of students that enrolled in that option. It wasn't those students still had to take a regular 10th grade English class.
That was
year.
my point in all of this, that it may not be a completely accurate measure. And if we're offering a full year class, that might in some ways be another avenue for us to lower those class sizes. So I support this recommendation as it is, and I'm certainly very open to discussing 9th grade at a future time as well, especially if we're not committed to making sure that we've also got the student supports for those students who will need it in order for this to work. Because that's how New Rochelle made it work. That's one of the only districts I know of that has really made this work. Everywhere else, it hasn't. Despite whatever people are saying in the studies, it hasn't yielded the results that people have hoped. So I appreciate that. And I think that may be an additional avenue since it would be a full year alternative for students in the MUL, but I still would like to look at the dual enrollment if we can do it.
I think the fundamental misunderstanding that I keep hearing repeated over and over in this process is that the current college prep classes are not rigorous. We keep talking about adding rigor, adding rigor, adding rigor. These are the teachers who have historically taught honors. These are the teachers who have historically taught college prep. These are the teachers who came to us and said, what I am using in my college prep class is the honors curriculum. And so when we talk about adding rigor, there is rigor currently in these classes. And I think we saw some of that in the student data. I think the other one, and one of my colleagues mentioned, identifying students with high potential. Every single student has high potential. Every single student has the potential to excel in these classes. I think we discussed last year opening up the AP English 10 as an option. I don't think it fits as an elective. I think it should be a full English class. This is something, kids get the extra point for taking an AP class on their college applications and things like that. 9th grade doesn't count for that, but 10th grade does, so great. We'll give them an AP English 10 option through the seminar. I think people keep talking about the unfairness of AP tests, and my kid went through APs, and there's pros and cons to AP. There are test waivers or fee waivers for any kid who takes that who qualifies. So cost is not a barrier to that. Students also don't have to take the test to take the class. So a student could certainly take the class, choose not to take the test if they didn't want to go for college credit on it. I think the inevitable result of a three-class system like this is that we're going to see a resegregation of the students. And I'm not just talking racial and ethnic. I'm talking about we're going to see a concentration of English learners in what becomes the low class. We're going to see a concentration of low-income students in what becomes the low class. I think we're going to see a concentration of English learners and students with disabilities in what becomes the low class. And I think it's I mean, I do not support this. I suspect I am not going to prevail on this issue, and I can live with that. But I think it's irresponsible to be talking about creating these classes without baking into it the support systems that we're going to be providing for students, the systems that we are going to be providing, because we've talked about, yeah, it's open enrollment, but one of the things that, again, our teachers told us is that there were barriers to students going into the honors classes before. There were barriers for students going in. Some of it was psychological, some of it was social. We have not dealt with that at all, but we are in place at putting back that old system. Actually, we're putting in a system that's even more fragmented than it was before. And we are going to see our historically marginalized students, and again, not just talking about racial and ethnic, I'm talking about all kinds of different dimensions, pushed to the bottom again. And I'm not hearing anything in this about what supports are we going to do to make sure that an English learner who wants to take honors class can do it and can be successful. I'm not hearing anything about students with disabilities being able to take any of these classes. I'm not hearing about those systems that will prevent that resegregation that we saw prior to this. And I think that's very concerning, and I don't think this is ready. You know, if people are so enamored with the idea that a class has to have an H after it, I can see cranking up the college prep class to the point where it's called honors. I mean, we've talked about honors for all, but I think a three-class system like this is absolutely going to divide up the students in very predictable ways.
So I did send a lot of my questions ahead of time, and I don't think that they were answered in the amended presentation. I heard references to the college, the ELA 10 honors being pre-approved already, but that was pre-approved as a partner to the previous general ELA 10. And so when you put a college prep next to English honors, you know, are we going to have trouble getting that UC distinction when we don't have them side by side together? I would like to see, I know you're saying, like, let's just revert to that, but maybe we need to see that side by side in order to make sure that this is something that we're going to have that UC weighted distinction on, or maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I did address that within the slide deck, and spoke to how we would have to redesign, even though it's been pre-approved, we would have to redesign that honors course for that very purpose, so that it is aligned through the A through G, and it is distinctly separate from the college prep.
So it would have to come back to us, because
Correct.
you did say
I did.
this is pre-approved, but then you're saying now we have to redesign it.
Yes, and then I
Okay.
iterated, we would have to redesign it and bring it back.
Okay, so I was confused for a reason. Okay, and my other question was, my questions were also, how will our 10th graders be automatically enrolled? Are they automatically put into honors and then they have to self-select out of it? I would like to hear more about that. I would also like to hear more about, because before the AP seminar teacher and maybe you can let me know, the AP seminar teacher currently and how it was developed before was by a social science teacher, correct?
No, it's an English teacher that's teaching the class.
Currently, it's an English teacher.
Correct.
And it will continue to be an English teacher?
If that's how we move forward.
I'm curious about the number of sections that we're going to have, and I'm sure that we're going to meet we were going to attempt to meet the need, but at the same time, I don't see in here that we have the ability, that we are planning to bring in the capstone diploma, which would be AP seminar followed by AP research, and then we have the feather in their cap for a capstone diploma if that's what they want do. And while it may not be in the course sequencing of ELA, it is in the course sequencing overall for our students. So it's not that I'm not wanting to see. I'm not anti-differentiating at 10th grade. I am very much trying to find out whether or not we have the pieces in place to make sure that the direction that we're giving you is based on the very best information here. And I feel like we're putting like that we don't have all the pieces in place here to make sure that that this is the right thing to do, because like our student board member said earlier, while AP Seminar may be approved as a part of some other folks' English language course sequencing, there are also other places that don't allow that and really have it as either an elective or a part of their social science. So like I'm just confused as to whether or not AP Seminar really makes them prepared to provide writing samples for their college application. I am in this right now in terms of my junior and my senior, right? So, are we providing enough opportunities for them to provide writing samples when they do their college applications? Are we preparing them? So if they did indeed do AP Seminar but chose, and then the next year they wanted to do, AP Lit or AP Lang, does that prepare them for that the way that we thought we've been telling ourselves that College Prep 10 is supposed to be? And is there across the board at 10th grade, do you recommend, like, what are the basic foundations that they need to get that should be across all two or all three, how many ever options that we are going to provide, so that they can be prepared at 11th and 12th grade, whether, for those other options in 11th and 12th grade, even if college, even if four-year college isn't their thing, like, what's the foundation that you are trying to recommend and provide there? Like, I'm interested in that. And so I find that the tree, the course sequencing tree, is kind of missing, because if we're preparing them for those options.
Well, and remember, we were focusing just on 10th grade, so the rest of the tree wasn't building. If we needed to build that, I'm happy to bring that back to the table, but I can address some of your points.
Well, I'm sorry. I think that whenever we get course curriculum, whenever I get course curriculum here, whether it's a new course or whether it's sequencing, we need to see the whole tree. We have to see their trajectory. That
Okay.
It's not.
So I was doing the sequencing for 10th grade, but not the pathway, but I could show you the pathways. Those are different. But for example, AP Seminar can be a phased introduction to AP research and then concluding with the AP capstone. Should we approve that? So that could be one point of the pathway. And then in terms of skill development, if we were to utilize it for English courses, because a lot of high schools are now implementing it as an English 10 course and to meet graduation requirements, there's research and critical thinking, there's argumentation in it, there's collaboration. The communication piece is where students gain expertise in writing and presenting, which can improve their performance in their other AP English classes. In addition, with the research, they analyze information in various perspectives, not only from literature, but media and articles, speeches, and artistic works. So just to help answer some of the questions you were coming up with, that's some of the skill development.
I would be, right now, because we're talking about 10th grade, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with revisiting whatever we need to revisit later. I'm more concerned about the differentiation and the UC accreditation of the weighting, with us providing college partners of college prep and honors, and the pre-approved whatever honors. And if we need to hold on to this to say that we need to present to the actual course curriculum, represent it, then I would feel better about that? Or do you need just, I mean, Dr. Jimenez, like, do you just need direction to try to look at that? Like, I think it's like it's almost premature because they're not together.
Thank you, Ms. Loreto, for the question. I think for this evening, we do need some clear direction with respect to 10th grade. I think that's been established, and that's what the team has built this presentation upon, based on what we've heard from the last board meeting on this topic, and also in individual conversations that I know I've had with some of you with respect to what is your interest on this topic. And I also know Dr. Henrik spent some time in gathering information. So hopefully for tonight, I mean, that is the end goal, to have clear direction as to what this board wants to do with respect to 10th grade. And I think once that decision is made, it would really give us some options just with respect to the course selection, whether it's AP Seminar is offered, whether Honors English is offered, or a combination of three, or if you just want to make it two, because I think that's some area of concern for some board members. Those are all, options that are possible. End of the day, students self-select. I've been trying to get a good handle as to what that would be if we had the menu of the three, whether some students would say, I want to be in the AP Seminar versus the Honors English. I mean, that could happen. When this was offered back in 2022, you had 8 sections of the regular English, and then you had the 8 of the honors, and then there were 2 remedial instructional courses, and then there was a special ed course with like 5 students. And so that could happen with respect to those numbers of sections. So that would be 16, 18 sections that would be there. Is it going to be half and half, or is it 3? So I think for us, that is the direction we would like to get today with respect to 10th grade. Then if you want us to bring back the 9th grade, I think that would be another topic.
Thank you for these answers. I think that I trust you enough that whatever direction that we give today, that then it would be developed later. I'm not very sure about AP Seminar being a alternative for our English 10. I am open to. One of the things that I've been asking for is the data around our disaggregated, the disaggregated data around our students. That's not going to keep me from continuing to see that we do need, differentiated, options here. And so, I'm okay with that, but, some of this is about more so practice rather than the actual thing, because some of the data that board member Carlson showed today, it's not anything that we haven't known, but it's also that we also look at data in terms of following those students throughout the years and not just comparing different cohorts of students, because that 11th grade student from students, that cohort from last year, they were affected by the pandemic in different stages of their ELA development, right? So those are some of the things that I think that it's setting it aside. It's also like who needs what supports and strengths. And so I agree with board member Guerrero in terms of we can kind of offer everything, but if we're not looking at who we actually need to support and what they need and how we are telling them, okay, are we just going to say if you don't self-select, or are we going to what's the automatic option? Is it, I guess, what I'm looking to you for your recommendation too, and that's not going to change how we set direction tonight. It's going to change more so how do we refine it later? How do we continue, reaching out to all of our students and making sure that, everybody is going to have the opportunity to achieve. So I am okay I am agreeing to being open to you developing English 10 honors and whatever you're going to call it. If it's going to be honors, it has to have the UC accreditation. And whatever we need to do to get there, then I'm going to be okay with that. What I have been frustrated with in the past is the idea that the college prep curriculum was our past honors one. And so when we say we're just going to resurrect that, it doesn't sit well with me. And that's why I've had a struggle and resistance to this, because I really want it to be differentiated.
Yeah, we're not resurrecting that.
Okay.
So college prep 10 would be like the regular course as we're doing now.
So,
with options.
And the reason why I'm not urgently looking to revisit ninth grade right now is because we don't have that availability to weight it for UCs. And so and that's the only reason why right now. So I hear you, and I think that I'm clear that I'm not convinced about AP seminar being in there. I am open to two different differentiated classes. I want to see them together.
If it helps for everyone too, the reason the AP option came to the table was a twofold. One, student voice. You know, that was something that they were interested in, not the seminar per se, but in an option. Mm-hmm. And then the other was we have teachers already trained in it, and they know the materials, and we have the materials. So that was an easy, like, okay, we can take that class and move it over from the elective to the English. So that's why that was brought to the table as an and/or. So I just wanted to put that out there so you understood the context behind why that was brought forward.
So I just want to, make sure that we have distinct classes that we are making the case for, and that we're not just saying like, well, this is the amount of work that I'm willing to put in, this is what we're slotting in, because that was the answer before. And so but I trust that you will bring that curriculum for our approval later on, so that we can make sure that we're delivering on our direction.
Board Member Loretto, just for your information, that was 15 minutes. So thank you.
Sorry, I was going to try to summarize. What I'm hearing, because I think staff needs really clear direction before I wrap up. And so I think there's the conversation just about 10. There's a question about if it's going to be college prep 10, 10 honors, AP seminar, what are offerings? I hear some people concerned with the 3-tiered system. I hear a concern from Guerrero. I hear a concern from you, I think. About AP seminar.
I mean, I think Mr. Guerrero and myself want to make sure that what we have afterwards is a plan for how we're going to support and recruit those students who would either not understand that they can push themselves this way due to systemic barriers, and how we can support students as well.
Sure.
That doesn't have to be in here, but it should be a necessary next step.
Yes, and the question is about the current, what we're being presented now. So what's your stance?
So I support the recommendation.
Okay.
I just also, if there's a way, I don't know, to amend it or make clear that we need these additional steps, because Board Member Guerrero is correct. If we're going to make this work, we have to do those things, in my opinion.
So I'm so confused because, because there's 3 different things on the table right now, right?
You mean college prep, honors, and AP?
It's whether or not you agree with all 3 being provided, right? Because that's your recommendation right now.
It's doing the college prep class as your non-honors class with either honors English or the college prep class with AP seminar, or all 3. So to give you options.
Okay.
So there isn't just one recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want us just to say what we prefer out of the
Just so
10?
staff can get
Yeah.
a clear understanding.
My preference is college prep plus honors. I don't really care about AP seminar.
Yeah. So I hear that from you. I hear that from you. You two are, your recommendation, you're
I'm
like none.
okay with the 3.
Okay.
But I can live with the 2.
And you're none.
Yeah, not with 3.
Yeah, you're not. You're
college prep
muted.
and AP.
It's fine.
College prep and AP.
college prep and AP. Okay, so you don't want the honors option. Okay, so I think we're hearing 2, 1, 1. I can speak for myself. I guess it seems like I'm going to be the swing on this. I'm also not understanding where this piece on having honors and AP seminar being introduced at the same time is coming from, and so I'm also too not convinced that that's the best path forward. So I would support college prep and honors. I think Mr. Guerrero really hit the nail on the coffin when he talks about the real need for supports and what that looks like. And not having heard that conversation, I think that this is a conversation or talking point that I've been talking about my entire time on the board. And I also understand that if we wait until 10th grade to have that conversation, we've already failed. And so we have to continue to talk about intervention early in elementary school, latest middle school, but if we're having the conversation in 10th grade English that kids can't read, it is too late. And so when we're talking about what English for all could and must look like, what education for all has to look like for every single student group in our district, we have to make sure that we're rooting that conversation, yes, in data, yes, in literacy, but it has to start in elementary school. And so I think that we all are kind of saying the same thing, and we all want students to achieve in this district. We may have different ideas on where we get there, but something that I really want to underscore is that we have to make sure that conversation is centralized in elementary school, and it has to be centered around literacy, but also where we're seeing it show up in math. And so my issue with this entire conversation this entire time is it's only ever been centered at high school, and it is my opinion that that is too late. And so I want to reground us as we continue to move forward when we talk about what education and what literacy and what English looks like for everyone, that we have to talk about at least a K-12 approach, but really, I mean, really K-4.
Well, can I just say thank you? Because we were just having that discussion today, Dr. Jimenez and I, and there's just so much to be said, even TK to second, and that our students exit second by reading. You know, they're reading fluently and they have comprehension. And to build upon those interventions as we go, and what does that look like? You know, beyond the bell, before, after? What are we doing during the school day? Like the high school has the flex. What about our middle and elementaries? What do they have that's during the day push in and support and all hands on deck so that students can get the just right instruction that they need? So I hear that and appreciate it.
In order to build. So in order just to go forward with the consensus seems to be, I do think that having the third class option allows us to make the classes smaller, but I hear 2 and 2, 1, 1. So I'd like to move to accept the motion with honors and college prep by itself, just to move things forward.
Cool. So I think that's the conversation that we're having with 10. So it sounds like that's the direction. We haven't voted yet, but I want to also just touch on the piece about us having a conversation around what English 9 can look like. I think that we're hearing the board say we want to talk about English 9. I'm not sure. So sorry, it was a little confusion at the last meeting, but I think the board wants to have a conversation about what English 9 looks like. I know I can speak for myself specifically. I'm really interested in knowing what English 9 ethnic literature could look like, what English 9 ethnic studies can look like, and if we can, it's going to be my ask, but if when we hear that presentation, we can talk about what that integration between, or in English 9 can look like with the ethnic literature lens. I'd really, really appreciate that.
Okay, so I made the motion. Is there there was a motion required, right? Or Lindsay, did you move?
Yeah, I moved it. So I think, I mean.
But didn't we have to
So
choose
before we
an
do that, I just
option?
wanted to make sure that you didn't have anything else you wanted to say.
Well, I had a question on what Board Member Lackman just shared, but I think we should get the motion sorted out first.
Cool.
Okay, well, I think, I mean, it sounds like I would amend the motion to approve a recommendation, one of the options for college prep plus honors in 10th grade at this time.
That finishes discussion. That finishes discussion, though. So if you need to say
Well,
something.
I guess my question would be on the follow-up to that, about that option.
What do you mean?
So that conversation's happening right now before the motion.
Okay.
Rebecca, is it?
Cannot add to the discussion after we vote.
Yeah, once there's a motion to vote, I think unless there's we've had the debate before, but.
Okay, well,
Go ahead.
may I ask a question before your
Yeah.
motion then?
Yeah.
If we go to that two-class model of college prep and honors, what happens to the existing seminar class? Does it just get cut loose? Does it
Still
remain?
an
I think it
elective.
stays as an elective,
It's an
yeah.
elective, it's not a full year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Just-
it's
It is
a
a full
plus.
year. It's an
It's an elective.
elective.
Yeah, it's a plus, in other words, not an or.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have a motion.
Okay.
I think you made it.
Yes.
I don't remember who seconded. I think you seconded it.
I second the
Yeah,
new amended
okay.
motion.
So we're going to call a vote on the recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Yeah, nay. Okay, so we have 4-1. Was it clear, Carlson made the motion, Guerrero seconded, it was 4-1.
But at one point, Member Lockman made a motion.
It was the same motion,
He was,
and she'd already made
It
the
was what it-
motion.
Pretty
It
made
was-
a motion.
Yes.
Go back to the original, okay.
It's
so-
Carlson.
Yeah,
Carlson
because
made
she
it.
has to amend
Guerrero.
it.
So
Yeah.
who seconded?
Right.
That's where we're, okay,
Guerrero.
we're- okay.
yeah,
Got
and it was 4-1.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, 12-2.
Okay, 12.2 is